Hey folks, we knew this one was probably coming. The first round of balance updates for the Khans of the Steppe DLC has been announced today, and the patch is actually already out. So we're going to go through the changelog. This is 1.16.1, and a lot of this is around nerfing the Nomads, making them that little bit less fearsome, a little bit less blobby as they have been since this DLC was released. The first part here they're going to talk about are the bug fixes. Nothing too crazy here. A few fixes around the barbershop, a few fixes to crashes, which there was also a very quick hotfix actually yesterday, which fixed a bunch of crashing and memory issues. So if you have been playing since yesterday, you've probably seen some improvements that aren't even mentioned in this patch change here. Now, outside of that, they've also made it so all players always start with at least 7 courtiers in your realm, unless you are an adventurer. I actually noticed this one this week when I was playing my own campaign. And yes, you could spawn in as a new character, and you wouldn't even have enough people to fill out your Kurultai, your council, or, you know, some of the important roles that you need to have. So now you have at least 7 people when you start. They might not be very good, but at least you can fill out those roles on new characters, which is great to see. They've also made it possible to launch the special Hungarian migration via decision, even if you are nomadics. This was kind of cut off from nomadic realms. If you were in that area of the game at any point, you couldn't do that, and that now has been fixed. They've also changed it so steppe cultures can no longer use the Byzantine throne room. I guess they were role-playing the British or something, taking that throne room for themselves, taking it home and using it, but that is no longer possible. And then they've also changed the effects of the Peace of the Great Khan decision that caused some steppe counties to be turned into republics. I guess it was just randomly choosing them for some counties and not others. That has now been fixed. And then we're going to get into the meat of this. This is the balance changes. And as you can see, there is a lot of balance changes. I think most of these I would agree with. There's some fantastic ones around how the seasons affect your herd and things like that. But to begin with, they've lowered the efficiency of reinforcing your men-at-arms with gold or herd, really nerfed how easy it is to reinforce your men-at-arms. This, I think, is a great change. Makes those battles a little bit more interesting. You can't just immediately replenish it for a relatively low cost. This has made the herd and gold cost considerably higher. They've also changed chaotic succession. It now has a 3 out of 4 chance of receiving a major consequence if you qualify for them, up from 1 out of 4, and a 2 out of 3 chance to suffer from medium consequences if you qualify for them. So I guess this is a balance change. I guess this wasn't a bug before. I guess they had it not that consequential if you were in one of these succession types, which a lot of the times you are, to be honest. It's pretty hard to keep everyone in line with you, obedient to you. They have changed it now, so 3 out of 4 instead of 1 out of 4 for a major consequence, especially if you're going up the ranks. If you're starting as a small Khan and really building your realm up, this is going to cause you to have a lot more bad consequences, losing men-at-arms, losing land, which we're going to talk about in a second as well. So this is going to make nomadic realms that little bit less blobby, I think. You're going to see a little bit more towards, you know, the usual succession issues you see, especially as tribal or something like that. So we'll see what difference this makes in game. Do let me know if you've played it and you've noticed any major changes around that, but that is going to be a major change there. And then part of that, as I said, the realm split outcome of a chaotic succession is now much more common. So that is where you'll lose land, things like that. So that one is going to have an effect on you as well. Made non-nomads care about fewer positive tribalization modifiers and made them less likely to willingly submit to nomads in general. Tribals are slightly more likely than feudals. This, I think, has been one of the biggest complaints I've seen, that once you got your modifiers high enough, everyone just started to tribute you, especially around, you know, the Byzantines. We've seen that a lot where they just immediately tribute to somebody else, and then you see them stay that way for a long time. And even in my campaigns, I do live stream this game every Tuesday and Thursday, and we've seen recently in those, like, once you get that ball rolling, you just get those swathes of people becoming tributes to you, and it doesn't really make sense, and this is going to balance that little bit more, which is good to see. They've also added a minus 25 county control penalty to counties gained via the demand pasture land interaction. So I guess this is to stop you just being able to, like, spin around basically in a couple of counties, just constantly giving away the pasture land and then demanding it back and things like that. It is going to lower the control, which is going to make it less useful for you to do it that way. The next change here is they've added growth penalties to herders and settle rulers during a severe drought, the white Zud, or a cold Zud, to make it harder to keep high fertility by releasing and demanding pasture land. So kind of linked into the one above, really, stopping you kind of exploiting that system to just have really good fertility in your land. In the next one, they've increased the fertility decline from a white Zud from 40 to 80 and a cold Zud from 30 to 40 for nomadic rulers, really making those cold Zuds even worse than they were already, making them that little bit more impactful. They've also reduced the fertility growth percentage during a white Zud from -40 to -80 for herders and settle rulers. They also get affected by that a lot more, so you're going to see a lot more desolation during those harsh winters. They've also added an immediate fertility reduction for herders when a bad season starts, -50 for White Zud, -25 for Cold Zud, and -10 for severe drought. Again, reducing that kind of, I guess, like exploit of just giving herders land before one of these seasons started, and then as soon as the season started, use up your fertility and then just move into their lands, and it wasn't affecting you that badly, or at least you had that like stockpile for a little while. So again, another great change there. Next, they've added county control reduction when a bad season takes over for nomadic rulers in all held counties. -25 for the two worst Zuds and -10 for the cold Zud, again, making that control that little bit worse. Really reducing like how good the nomadic realms are, even in the winters when it is pretty bad. They've made it a lot more impactful, and you can't really just ride it out as much as you can currently, by the sounds of it anyway. The next one is great. I actually really agree with this. We were talking about this on the live stream the other day. I have seen this mentioned quite a bit on the forums, is that they've added herd loss during a White Zud for nomadic rulers, 10% of their current herd during White Zud, and then 20% for the worst version of the Zuds as well. So this is great. This is what people have been asking for, really making those kind of really harsh winters really impactful. You actually lose herd now during these winters. The problem is that your herd never got reduced by winters. It only slowed how fast it grew, which didn't really make sense during very harsh winters. Surely some of your herd would die off, and this means that that actually happens now. This makes those really harsh winters a lot more impactful, reducing your herd, reducing how good your armies are. And again, we'll see that play out, like how quickly people can blob, things like that in the game, which again is a great change, I think. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. But I think there's a lot of nerfs here. I wasn't expecting quite so many. We don't see any for the buildings. I'm sure we'll see that maybe next week. But I think this is a great start to really bring them a little bit more into line. And there's some more changes still yet to come. So next, they've increased the herd penalty for nomadic rulers during a severe drought, a White Zud, and the worst Zud as well. I'm not going to try butcher the name in this video. I've done that enough in the dev diaries. So really just making this weather again that little bit more impactful than it currently is. Next, they've added some prestige loss to the failure outcome of the steel herd scheme. So those of you who have been spamming the intrigue, 2 of these schemes at a time, I'm just getting loads of herd out of this. What a good time. Well, now you're going to lose prestige if you fail it, which again kind of balances that a little bit more impactful if you aren't so good at doing this. It isn't like an automatic thing you will do now, because why wouldn't you do it? Now you get that prestige loss if you are a failure at this. They've reduced the initial max success chance of steel herd schemes as well from 40 to 30, making them that little bit harder to do as well. They've also reduced the base acceptance for the negotiate obedience character interaction from -50 to -95, really making obedience harder to get hold of for a character. You're probably going to have to use those events and things like that, especially doing your nurges, feasts, and choosing the obedience option to try get that from that. You can't just negotiate it really easily as you can currently. Next, they've removed the White Zud from the possible initial seasons at the start of the game and rebalanced the chances of the others. I think this is really just so when you're first starting in the nomadic realms, having a White Zud immediately was pretty harsh to get that, to be honest. So that has been removed. You can't get like one of the worst winters, and then they've just evened out the more reasonable ones. And then as you play through that, you're going to encounter the best and the worst versions of that as you do carry on playing in the steppe. Next, they've reduced the base prestige gain from a great nerge from 300 to 250. Nothing too crazy there. They've reduced the prestige gain from an excellent nerge from 400 to 350, and the gold from 350 to 250. Nothing too crazy there. I mean, if you get the excellent one, there's all the other bonuses as well. I think that one is kind of fair. I guess if you did get them rolling really well, that is quite a lot of gold that you would have been getting. Next, they've halved the values of all herd gained through the raid intents and fixed the tooltips to reflect this. This is actually a massive change. So from this, they've done 400 to 200 for pillage, 200 to 100 for capture, 600 to 300 for plunder, and 400 to 200 for adventure. So a lot of reduction there for herds. This is going to make getting the government tiers that little bit harder. You've got to get to what, like 10,000 herd to be able to do a kingdom migration. This is going to make that harder to do. You can't just do raiding and steal all the herd from everyone. That is going to be that little bit harder. So again, just really balancing that. You're not going to be able to build up your army by doing this as well. Next, they've reduced the base reluctance of the recipient of the pledged tribute character interaction from -100 to -50. So another change there around tributes and things like that. The next one is they've added cultural traditions to the Hunnic culture, pastoralists, horse breeders, and the recognition of talent. Not really a balance change, although I guess it is. That sounds more like a bug fix, but anyway, they have added those now. And then the last thing they've changed here is lowered the exchange ratio obtained through the Summon Wealthy Visitors decision if the Herd Barter domicile building is constructed from 6-1 to 10-1 in levels 1 and 2, from 4-1 to 8-1 for levels 3 and 4, and from 2-1 to 6-1 for levels 5 and 6. So that is actually the only real like building change that is in these patch notes. I kind of thought we'd get more building balancing, but again, as I said, maybe that's going to be next week. And with that, that is the end of the patch notes for today's patch. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I think a lot of these make sense. I think it makes playing the Nomads maybe that little bit less fun. I'm not too sure, but I think considerably less powerful, and making the seasons more important, making the weather more important, which really isn't at the moment. If you get a few of the bad winters together, it wasn't great, but with these changes, especially reducing the size of your herd, is a big change there that will help kind of keep them under control that little bit longer, and getting rid of the tribute spam, I think is going to make a huge change, because it was kind of ludicrous. Once you got that ball rolling, once you got your modifiers high enough, you could pretty much tribute everyone, and then you tribute somebody else, and then they'd have a border with somebody, so then you could tribute them, and you could kind of snake across the map really easily, especially if you're playing as the Khan. A bunch of people would just become tributes of yours without any effort, so good to see those changes. As I said, this is out today, so let me know if you've been playing it, if you've seen any crazy changes from this. I imagine it will make them harder to play, but hopefully no less fun. That is one thing I've said in all my live streams recently. I don't want them to nerf them to the point where they're not fun. It's like unlanded characters. Yeah, they're a little bit too powerful maybe, but they're fun to play. And I hope Nomads stay fun to play, even with these changes. We'll see how they go in the future. But do let me know what you think. Hit that like button if you've enjoyed the video today. Subscribe if you haven't already. I cover all the dev diaries, patch notes, discussion videos, live streams, all those cool things. So do make sure you subscribe if you've enjoyed today's video. But we'll leave it there for today, and I'll see you all next time.